UK fiscal position. So that was our job. I will focus on the financial stability side and give you a broad map of how we thought about these issues. We ended up recommending a package consisting of the ring-fencing structural proposal, which is not a full split. Our recommendations are not against universal banking. However, we believe that, at least in the UK context, totally unstructured universal banking has risks which it is well worth paying the cost to diminish. If you have a great big bank like Royal Bank of Scotland, balance sheet larger than 1 year's output in the economy, doing a combination of high street banking and international wholesale and investment banking, and if you have a shock like Lehman's and the consequences, then the UK government in 2008 could not say, well, we want to protect Royal Bank of Scotland on the UK high street, but let market forces take care of the rest of the bank. It had no option but to save the whole bank, because there was no separability, no modularity in its structure. So in terms of the left-right dimension, we were sort of in the middle, not radicals on structural reform, but certainly not content with the status quo. The other dimension on loss-absorbing capacity, which we did a lot of work on, of course there is a move to higher standards through the Basel process, the international process. Our analysis led us to conclude that the Basel baseline was not enough equity capital protection for the large UK banks, and that in particular, and in addition, you need measures to make debt, long-term unsecured debt, better at absorbing losses. In the crisis, some holders of subordinated bank debt did take losses, like equity holders, but many long-term debt holders came out 100% whole, which is not how things in a market economy should work, but some of the loss should be borne by those private sector actors. The reason they did not take loss was because the place they would bear loss would be in bankruptcy, but governments could not let these banks go into bankruptcy. So there is the debate about so-called bail-in. When certain thresholds are crossed, can regulators impose losses on debt holders or require conversion of some debt into equity? That is also part of our scheme. So the aim is a combination of the ring-fence structural measure and higher than Basel capital requirements and other measures to make debt and hybrid instruments better able to absorb losses. We think that brings at least three main benefits. Much better protection. It's never going to be perfect, but much better protection of UK domestic banking from international shocks. Also, when there are shocks, whether international or domestic, the greater loss absorbency means that the taxpayer is much more remote from having to come in to fund the banks in trouble, in stress. So much greater loss absorbency. We believe that would give much better incentive arrangements for banks in undertaking risks in the first place. We think as well that if there surely will be some future crisis, the world is not immune to that under any arrangements, then the degree of separability that ring fencing provides and the bail-in provisions and so on will give governments a much better set of options for how to deal with the situation than governments like the UK government faced in 2008. A further merit that we see in the ring fence idea is that it allows you to have greater protection for domestic banking while allowing international standards to apply to the international business of the UK-based banks affected by these proposals. If you had higher capital requirements across all their activities, that could put UK banks at a competitive disadvantage in international competition. But the ring fence idea gives you that ability to have higher domestic standards and international standards applied to international activities. And the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, has called this the British dilemma, is how to get both of those things, and the ring fence idea seeks to do that. How do you design it? I could spend a long time on technicalities here. The two themes I would want to bring out are these. First, the ring fence needs to be strong. If it's very easy within a group for the ring fenced and the other rest of the bank to circumvent their structural break, then the idea is it evaporates, it's worthless. So there needs to be independence of capital, independence of governance, of board arrangements, limits on dealings between the two parts of the bank to make the fence strong, a high fence, but the policy objectives which we were aiming to achieve can be secured with quite a flexible fence. Some activities, ordinary deposit taking and overdrafts, those on our scheme have to be in the ring-fence bank. Some of the global activities, the derivatives, the market activities, the trading, cannot be in the ring-fenced entity, but there are activities in between, like lending to non-financial businesses, like taking corporate deposits, which, from the logic of our proposals, that could be inside or outside and left to the choice of the banks and their customers. If you have a rigid and strong fence, you run risks of trapping deposits and lending opportunities in inefficient ways. So this degree of flexibility reduces the economic cost of these proposals without threatening the logic of the proposals. If you take a snapshot of the UK bank balance sheets now, most of their activities would be outside the fence. Roughly 1/5 would have to be in the fence. Roughly 2/5 could be in the fence. So this is an important degree of flexibility, not just a small degree. Some voices said you should have gone further, you should have a full breakup. We considered that quite carefully, but we thought that that really would have been an end of universal banking. We thought that the economic costs of that were potentially quite substantial, and the benefits of it were less clear. It is true that with a full split, you have even greater protection from contagion from an international shock through to domestic banking, but you lose the possibility that the global group would save, the investment banking side would save the domestic side. So we thought this was an additional cost without a clear benefit, so we did not recommend, we recommended against a full split.